We all know as studio owners how difficult it is to find great teachers. It's a common complaint amongst studio owners. But more than that, how to really cultivate that beautiful culture within your studio, within the team, and then keep them for a long time so that you're not constantly rolling through staff. Yeah, this is a common issue, a common challenge that studio owners all face. Now, this has been going on for years in the industry. This is nothing new, but post-COVID and in recent times, the landscape of what employing teachers and the expectations of teachers and those upcoming emerging staff members has really changed. And, we need to evolve with the times, of course, and also manage how we can future-proof our businesses, because team is such an important part of our student retention strategy. It's an important part of a viable business. It's an important part of just being operational, let's face it. And that's why I'm really excited to have this next guest. She's a wonderful human. I've met her several times at industry events around Australia. Her name is Robyn Parras. Now, Robyn has always had a passion for teaching, and she actually completed her Bachelor of Education in Primary School Teaching. Later, Robyn would merge her passion of teaching and dance, and she opened Prodigy Performing Arts. She started in her backyard, which, has evolved, of course, so much since then, 16 years later. She is one of the leading performing arts studios in the Macarthur region here in New South Wales, Australia. Alongside her studio, Robyn was the director and choreographer of the Sydney Roosters cheerleaders. She's played a pivotal role in shaping one of the most elite squads in the NRL over the last 13 years. She's also developed the Dance Apprentice. Now, this is a teacher training program for dance schools, which has over 500 teachers training to be the next leaders in the studios that she supports and works with. So, we're really going to focus a lot on that teaching side of things and really developing the next generation of students into teachers and the benefits of that and what that actually looks like inside of Robyn's studio, but also within her clients. So that's really the focus today, because we really want to transform those students into amazing teaching staff. That's the goal, because, we want to future-proof your business. So we're going to talk about the landscape of, staffing teachers today. We're going to talk about the history of Robyn as well, and how she came about not only having a successful studio, but also creating the Dance Apprentice. All right, let's jump into the show. And I've got a little special announcement mid-show, which is we've got some wonderful employment contract templates for you as well, which you can grab the link in the show notes. So make sure you check it out, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later on in the piece. But for now, let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to Studio Biz and all that jazz. I'm your performing arts business coach and host, Josephine Lancuba. This show is designed to bring you inspiration, information, and the instruments you need to create and grow the studio biz of your dreams. I will bring you a mix of solo episodes as well as interviews where I tap into the minds of industry experts. My career started as a performer over 2 decades ago. I later became a speaker, theatrical producer, and talent manager, as well as having a successful teaching career in singing, drama, and dance. 10 years into my professional journey, I became a mama of 2, and with a baby on my hip, opened up my very own performing arts studio. From hardship and humble beginnings to 4 studio locations and a multi-6-figure performing arts biz, I know how to attract students and keep them coming back for more. And in the show, I will share with you my experiences to help you thrive and fast-track your path to success. I know you have a spark inside of you with dreams and goals for the future. As your coach and mentor, I'm here to help you step into your limelight and be a cheerleader in your ear each and every week. So get ready to be entertained and inspired as we talk studio biz and all that jazz.
I am so excited to have the wonderful Robyn Parras here today, which is so exciting because we bumped into each other recently, actually a couple of times, and I just had to get you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you so much for having me. And both times we've run into each other has been so fun.
Yeah.
Um, and both two different occasions as well. So it's been awesome.
Yeah. I think we've been at like speaking gigs and expos and all the sorts of things together, which has been really cool. And whenever I see someone in the industry around the traps like yourself and like I am, I always think, well, obviously you're very much a part of the dance industry here in Australia. And it's so important to have these different conversations. You've got the Dance Apprentice, which we're going to talk about later in the show. You're also a studio owner at Prodigy Performing Arts here in Sydney. So, there's a lot going on in your world. You've got
There is a lot. There's so much. It's
there
all
is so
happening.
much. And I know you've got quite a few balls in the air at the moment as well, because you've got lots of things happening in your studio life. So let's start from the beginning of your studio business, because I'm assuming that came along before you began the Dance Apprentice. Tell me about how that kind of got started.
So my background on that is I was at uni doing school teaching. So that was what I was planning to do. In my fourth year of uni, which is my final year, I opened up my dance school. And I actually just opened it in my parents' backyard with a few kids. And then, the speaker was pumping every Friday night. And then we kind of had a few more kids join and a few more kids join. And we got to a point where my mum kind of said, Robyn, you have kind of outgrown our backyard now. I think it's time that we start to have a look at something outside of the house. So then I went and looked at a local community hall and started classes there. And then from then, I started with predominantly cheerleading classes because back then I was doing cheerleading, which is something that, I kind of delved into a little bit more further on in my career. But I had quite a few kids off the bat of that, and then they all wanted more classes other than just cheer. So I then added the ballet, the tap, the jazz, the hip hop, and everything else. And then my studio grew from there. So when I left uni, I had a full-fledging studio essentially. And then I still taught 3 days a week. So I still taught in schools 3 days a week, and then I'd go and teach 4 nights a week at my studio.
What
And
sort of
then
thing were you teaching in schools? Like what was
primary
your
school
degree
teacher.
in?
I was a primary school teacher.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So I was still doing that. And then basically I got to maybe my third year, and I kind of said to the principal, look, my studio has just exploded and I need to be there full time, because I'd be in the classroom teaching, and at that time my phone would be connected to the studio number, and I'd be missing so many calls and things like that. And back then I didn't have the systems that I have in place now. I was just starting out. So I just had to make the decision to go full-fledged into the dance studio. So that's what I did. So here I
How long
am.
have you had the studio for?
This is my 16th year now.
Wow. And when you say you started in your backyard, tell me about that, because I think that's really interesting. Uh, we've we've had, lots of studio owners talk about having singing classes in their home and things, and dance is such a different thing. You literally were in the backyard. Like, were people coming to you to, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
So it was so random when you look at it now, because I'm thinking of my parents' backyard and I'm thinking to myself, I literally started here with 5 kids, and now, it's such a journey when you look back. And I think as studio owners, we never have that opportunity to actually say, hang on a second. Wow, look at where I was to where I am now. That's crazy. So I'm just having a minor reflection there. But so basically what happened was one of our family friends' daughters wanted to do cheer. And she said, oh, look, what if I get a couple of kids together? Would you do some classes in an afternoon and just do a cheer class? So she got her like 4 or 5 friends and then came to my parents' backyard, and then the word got out. It was just, they all had a great time. They were loving it.
How
And
old were you when you started doing that?
so I was 22.
Okay, so not too young. A lot of studio owners I know can start very, very young. And it's so funny, like when you talk about that reflection point, and that is so important because sometimes we forget how far we've come. Like we look at where we are today, we're like, I want more this and better that, and XYZ here. But really, we all start from somewhere. I mean, my very first studio was an absolute nightmare, and I started with 12 kids. So,
Yes.
I think it's really interesting when we think back in that sense. So then you've had this studio now for what, 16 years?
Yes.
What has been the big changes? I mean, you said you started with cheer. What has been and you said, oh, and I've learned so much and things have changed. So what has changed when you say, oh, we have systems in place now? What are you talking about?
So a couple of things for me. I mean, I'm a primary school teacher by trade. I had no business background. So everything I kind of did was just learning on the job, running a business. But I went into this as a teacher. I didn't come into this as a business owner. So that for me was the biggest change. When I started changing my mindset to you are a business owner, you are running a business, you're not just the teacher in the classroom. There are so many more elements to it. I had to put, all your hats on, your marketing hats and all the things. The minute I kind of shifted the way or my role in the studio is when my studio started to grow, if that makes sense. So I want to be a teacher. I love teaching dance. This is my passion. I'm here for the kids. This is creating a safe space. I always go back to my why. The one thing that's never changed in 16 years of business is my why. Why did I start my studio? So I always come back to that. If I'm ever having a down day or anything like that, why did you start this? Why are we here? I go back to that. So that's always stayed the same, but it's my role in the business that's changed. So
Can I ask what that why is? Like, what is your why?
so my why, so growing up, I had quite a difficult childhood in the house. So for me, my dance studio was my outlet. And that for me was my happy place. I could forget
Mhm.
everything that was going on there. I felt, that's your safe space. You have your friends, you can't, that's your comfort. So for me, I wanted to create an environment for my kids to thrive as humans, as dancers. That is their safe space where they can call their second home. And whether they're having a bad day at home or even just having a bad day with their friends at school, I know that they can come to the studio and they can forget that and truly be themselves and truly be happy and who they truly are in the studio. And I, I pride myself on that because, it'll be 9 o'clock at night and the kids still don't want to leave because the mums are all talking and the girls are all talking and they're still having a great time. And I love that we have that family environment in the school.
Yeah, that is very powerful. And I think it's important as well, because to have your why, whatever that why is, I suppose, because there are days where studio ownership is hard. There are
Absolutely.
days where business is hard.
Yep.
Even when you love teaching, you must admit there must be days where you're like, oh, I don't want to do this today, surely.
I think I've mentally sold my studio probably 100 times in the last 16 years, to be honest. When you have
Mm.
those days and you're like, this is like, what am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? This is getting too hard. It's getting too challenging. To what expense is, my mental health going to take on this? And then again, I come back to it and I'm like, imagine those kids. Those kids who come here every day and they love coming here and they've got their friends here and they've got their second family, and when they're on that stage and I see that their faces light up and they're in their true element, that is why I do what I do. That's
Mhm.
for me. Boom. I then go back and say, okay, I'm not selling it now.
Yeah, I
I
love
love
that.
it.
So, you've got this studio life and you've got, this other side of yourself. Talk about, you know, when it comes to team and staffing, why you moved into the dance apprentice.
Absolutely. So I found as I grew with Prodigy, I had more and more preschoolers kind of come in, more and more, junior age group. And I found that I needed assistant teachers on my classes. So obviously I got some assistant teachers to jump on board with me just to help me with the props and running of the class. But I found myself getting frustrated with them a lot because I would always be asking, why are they not doing this? Why are they not doing that? How can they not see that I'm inundated? I'm doing wiping the nose, I'm throwing the scarves in the air, I'm setting up the hula hoops. How do they not know to press play on the speaker if they can see me doing all these things? And then you kind of have a bit of a self-reflection, and you say, well, how can they know if I haven't taught them to do that?
Yes, I love
So that's
this.
me. And I thought, hang on, no, that's you. They don't know what they're doing because you haven't trained them. So then I started creating a training program for my girls, and I would train them. I would go through and I'd say, okay, this is our structure. This is how we run a class. While I'm doing this, here's what you should be doing. So I kind of had this program I was training. And then in 2020, in COVID, my mentor, Rebecca, said to me, like, why are you not getting this program out? Like, this is exactly what schools need. Schools need to train their team, and you've got a program ready to go. So here we are, 4 years later, and I've got the Dance Apprentice fully running. I now have 4 programs, and it all runs within schools, training teachers.
So, what exactly is the Dance Apprentice for those that have never heard of it before?
Yep. So the Dance Apprentice primarily focuses on training teachers for dance. So we have just launched a Pathways program, which is for those students who are 12 to 14. The Pathways program is to learn how to be an assistant. So it's learning how to ease the pressure of the head teacher in the classroom. Then we've got our original course, which is for 14 years plus. Our original course is to train your actual assistant teachers to become teachers. So that program is essentially training them to be able to be in a classroom independently on their own and run a class. Following on from that, we have our Dance Apprentice 2.0, which I train my team in. So, for example, I start my teachers around 15, they do the original course, and then they do my 2.0 course over 2 years, because the content is it's a lot heavier, I say. It's got a whole module on communication, like how to communicate effectively, child protection, mastering the preschool program, health and wellness, teaching students with ASD and ADHD. So it delves a lot heavier into that teaching arena. So essentially, I have a 3-year training program. So by the time the girls or boys turn 18, they are able to take on a class on their own, ready to go. They've had the training.
Hmm. Do you think we are facing, since COVID, I mean, especially, you created this during COVID, and well, you had it created for yourself, but you didn't roll it out to other people until post-COVID. Do you think there's been a shift in the teaching staff and the availability, the expectations? I mean, I'm seeing a lot in Facebook groups at the moment, people complaining about teachers. Oh, they're not the same as they used to be. They want more, they expect more. They're, young'uns aren't the same anymore. Like, what's your take on all of that conversation? And have you witnessed that conversation yourself?
Absolutely. This is in all of my calls with teachers, this is the exact conversation that I have. And I try and explain to the studio owners, like, my core teaching team, I have 85% are all girls that grew up through Prodigy. They're
Mm.
all teachers that I've trained from 15 till now. They are reliable. They have their music in to me on time. Their time management skills are great. They're teaching by our, syllabus, or, even if we don't have a syllabus in jazz, we have set skills that each age group needs to obtain. So we know what they're teaching. They can lesson plan really well. Everything is so structured. They're at all of my open days, my VIP days. They're at rehearsals. They're at all the meetings. But that's because they're there for the studio. They're there. They know what our culture is like because they grew up in it. And so I'm such a big believer in training that younger generation to be the teachers for the future in my school, because I know that they're there for me, they're there for Prodigy, they're there for the kids, they've grown up together. And I have a lot of studio owners who are like, I don't have that 15-year age group yet. That's why I implemented the Pathways program, to get them in the door and get them to start training them, so that you've got them and you can start molding those teachers for your school, because you want them to learn your studio culture, right? You want them to build that. So for me, yes, I've heard it, but I'm also, a true, what's the word? I'm proof, the proof is in the pudding. Like, I've used the program and I'm blessed with my team. I can't complain, if that makes
But do
sense.
you think that there has been a change? Like, do you think that teachers, I understand, like, if they've been fostered within an environment, then they understand a culture. But do you think there's a general shift in people's expectations? Like, what's your take on that?
Yep, absolutely. I think the expectation of payment, of what you get paid, I think the expectation of, well, no, I don't have to do that. That's not within my scope. All of those sorts of things. Whereas back in the day, I know, and you could probably vouch for it, I'd go to rehearsals and everything unpaid. I'd be wherever my studio owner wanted me to be, because I was so invested in that school, if that makes sense. I would never have thought, like, actually, no, if you want to own that piece of choreography, you now need to pay me a teaching fee and a choreography fee. Like, these are the things that are coming through now. So then studio owners are now up for quite exuberant fees because of all these things that are coming through. And I get it. Like, I'm all for protecting everyone's working rights and everything like that. But they're the changes that I have seen in terms of, like, the way the industry is going.
So how do you think we can tackle that? Like, because, okay, so let's say, I love that example of the choreography fee. That's a really good one. Okay. So you've got someone that says, well, now you have to pay me X amount if you want to own my choreography and all the bits. How do we move to that? Let's imagine that really stretches a studio owner's budget. I mean, we want to be fair to the teacher. How can we balance that with business?
And it definitely will stretch the budget, because we're probably paying these teachers $80 to $90 an hour plus super on top of that. So, the routine might take 4 hours, 5 hours to teach. So you're already up for $500. This is a regular teacher, for example. And then, you're paying the choreography fee on top of that. For me, I find having all of your contracts, getting in with the HR company, which we do, they write all of our employment contracts, whether they're casual, part-time or full-time. And everything is stipulated in that contract, so that if anything like this does arise, we can then have this conversation with our teacher and say, well, this is by, the HR rules in our contract, or this is the laws, this is what we go by. Everyone is on the same page with that.
I think it's very important to have good employment contracts.
Agreed.
I think, it's one of those things too, because we want to keep people happy, but at the end of the day, we need to be realistic about, circumstances, especially in today's market. Are you coming across any studio owners that might be concerned about the current climate with, inflation and the costs rising? Like, what's your take on that side of things? Because obviously we want to invest in team, but we're also seeing, a lot of strain in relation to those financials.
Absolutely. And I think at the moment, as a business owner, things are getting so hard. We've just had a minimum wage rise. We've just had a superannuation rise.
Yeah.
Rent goes up. I know my rent goes up 4% every year without even a question about it. Then, so you're now paying staff more, you're now paying higher, rent on your property. Parents are struggling. You've got to then put your fees up to then counteract all your extra costs. Are the kids going to stay? Are they going to do more classes? Are they dropping their classes? There are so many things to factor in. And I know so many studios or studio owners, I should say, who are absolutely struggling. It is so hard out there. And yes, investing in your team and doing all those things, that is why I'm so big on investing in my team, because I know that they're my kids, essentially. They're my students, and I'm happy to invest in them because they've been with me for 8 years. They've been with me for 10 years. So I know that investing in them is going to be beneficial for my studio. And I think that's something that studio owners should probably try and do a little bit more of, is getting getting their younger kids who have been with them for a while so that they don't have to stress about, right, I need to find that teacher who's going to cost me $90. Oh my God, my ballet teacher's $110 an hour. Do you know what I mean? It's all those other little factors that
It's really, it's future-proofing your business,
yeah.
essentially, which is important, you know, and I think that maybe not enough people do that. I suppose it's so hard sometimes when you're in the thick of it to really think about that forward plan. But
Yes.
that's what can differentiate between those that are successful and have great team cultures, etc., versus those who are constantly struggling year on year and have a high turnover. I imagine a lot of your clients, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of them may be regional, or do you equally get city studios? Like, because regional can be really hard to hire, right? So how does that
Yeah.
balance out?
I have studios in Perth, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, all over. A lot of my Melbourne schools are about an hour or so outside of the city. Even one of my Sydney schools, for example, like they're out in the Blue Mountains. I think they've got 15 staff and 9 of those are all dance apprentice teachers that have been trained through the program. And the teachers, they love that because they're there, they're helping, they're doing all the things. They haven't had to look outside the box to get those teachers on board. They've looked inside their own home, essentially, like, you know, they're right there for them.
Are you a studio owner looking to contract teachers within your studio or employ teachers as employees within your studio biz? Are you wanting to safeguard your business with an agreement that protects you? Do you want to set clear expectations and healthy boundaries between you, your contractors, and your staff? If so, you need to have a legal contract in place when you take on your teaching team. Gain the protection you need with my quality contract templates, created by our expert lawyer. Plus, you can use these templates over and over again for each new teacher hire you make. So it's time now to reduce the overwhelm and feel confident when you take on new contractors and teaching team within your studio. To gain access to the amazing templates that are affordable and accessible now for you so you can start hiring, head to josephinelancuba.com/store and shop around. The link is in the show notes. Now back to the show.
Well, we've talked about the impact on studio owners when it comes to really fostering those training programs from a young age and kind of future-proofing the business and making sure that you've got a bit of a plan up ahead. But what about the impact do you think these sorts of in-house training programs and these nurturing programs have on the actual students themselves?
So good question. I personally, like, I'm a trainer and assessor as well. So I've been able to see what content, like what is heavy content for a student, and what is a reasonable amount. And I think with the dance apprentice, I was very conscious of the fact that these kids have a life outside of dancing and they've also got their own homework and assignments to do. So any of the things that they are doing within their in-house training, it is all completely relevant to the training that they are doing. It's nothing like write a 1,000-word essay on why we should keep kids safe in a classroom. It's things that they are learning, and then they need to implement that in the classroom practically. And then they need to, you know, show videos, or maybe they do need to write 200 words, but it's nothing outside of their scope that's going to be a 3-month assignment. It's things that they enjoy doing, they learn, they're applying, they grow confidence, they can then go and be teachers. So from my experience, I do go into a lot of schools and train the kids as well. And I always love getting feedback. How is this impacting you? Is this interacting with your schoolwork? Is this too much? And a lot of the time the answer is no, it's great. We were able to do it. We were able to complete this in an hour, the assignments in an hour. But me as a teacher have grown. I have grown in the classroom. I now feel confident taking a warm up. I now feel confident teaching choreography. So I'm always open to feedback to what can make things better, because I am very conscious of the impact on the students who are going through the course. But I feel like we've got the recipe where it needs to be.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine it would be really, could be quite a positive experience for the students, because they're stepping into a leadership role, essentially. Like, they're learning to be young leaders, which is a beautiful thing. Do you think that there's an impact on community, or like, is it strengthening the community? Like, what's your take on that side of things?
Good question. So within the studio itself, I love it because my younger kids look up to the assistant teachers and they all want to be like them, but they see the role that they have, and that role comes with maturity, respect, um, time management. It comes with all of those things that is required to be a teacher. So when my younger ones are looking up to them and thinking, wow, I want to be like that when I'm 15 or when I'm 16 or when I'm 18, I want to be a teacher. They are working towards that, and they do praise it. Like, my younger kids rush into the studio every day and are so excited to see my assistant teachers. And
Mm.
I'm sitting there like, hello, I'm still here. But like, I love that, because I know that in the future my kids are growing up with these teachers who are invested in them and their growth. And we have a very strict rule, like there's friendship and there's teacher, and we can't cross that line. But I know that they've got that relationship, that professional boundary with them, where, okay, we've got to work hard, but we can have fun. But hey, when we've got to work hard, we've got to work hard.
Yeah, that must be a little tricky, right? Because you're talking about young people coming into like assistant teaching roles and stuff. Do you think that can be tricky from a relationship perspective?
Yes. And a lot of the feedback I've had from studio owners is we're struggling to make them understand the barrier of, okay, we love that they have that relationship with the younger kids and they hug them and all of those things. However, we need them to understand that they are actually going to be the leader in the classroom.
Mm.
So, and that's fine, but that's part of the learning journey. So it's actually providing feedback and doing class evaluations and saying to your team, okay, here are some things that we saw that we could improve on. How could we improve this? So doing those check-ins with them regularly, because if we don't do that, how are they knowing what they're doing wrong? Or how can they improve if they don't know what they might not see that as a problem unless we're actually training them in that.
Mm. I mean, this has happened even in my studio many, many years ago, when I first started out, I must admit. But we hired, and they didn't move through any sort of training program. We were a new studio at the time, but we hired someone who was quite young. I think they were like 18 or 19 or something, and they were teaching a senior class of 16 and 17-year-olds. And that felt really messy, actually. So yeah, it kind of got on the verge of inappropriate, I thought.
And look, and
that's really hard to navigate, because you're talking about someone who's 18 trying to be cool and hanging out with the 16, 17-year-olds. Like, you can't just have a beer after the concert with the students,
No. Oh,
stuff like that. And I think that's tricky, even in a younger group. So you might have a 12-year-old in a group of 10-year-olds. So it's almost like they're friends. So there's a line, isn't there?
There is a line, and I think it's important on what classes you put those kids on. So, for example, I wouldn't, like, my 16-year-olds wouldn't be on a senior class. They are all on classes from 10 and under.
Yeah.
Like, my pathways kids are on minis and sixes. I wouldn't put them on anything older than that.
Because then they're essentially with their peers.
Correct.
Yeah, which could cause a lot of issues.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's the biggest challenge you're seeing right now in the studio ownership space when it comes to team and staff? What's the biggest challenge you think people are facing right now?
I think from understanding where everyone's sitting is employing people who are there for their school. So employing people who aren't just coming in, teaching 4 hours, taking a paycheck and going. So having that team who are really invested in their school. I talk to a lot of studio owners. They're like, oh, this teacher's not coming to our open day. They're not coming to our mid-year concert. I really wanted them to come to our mid-year concert, but they just weren't there. Just things like that. I also think the cost of paying teachers, that high-end $80, $90 to $100 rate, is also another factor, because studio owners, it's hard. If you've got a class of 15 kids, how can you afford to pay that? It's a challenge. It's hard work. It's hard. But if you don't have any other options, you have to pay that, right? So where do they go? Like you're kind of in a rock and a hard place. So I find that that's very, very challenging. I'd say that is probably the two things.
Do you think, though, that we focus too heavily on price sometimes? Like sometimes I think I've had some great teachers that come in at lower rates than others. Like I've had teachers that are higher cost, and honestly, I mean, they're amazing dancers. But when it comes to being a teacher, not really, versus someone who might be a little bit more green, but gosh, they love teaching, and they're coming in at half the rate. They require more training and assistance, but you end up better off. I think sometimes we focus so much on price, but I think sometimes people stay for different reasons, right? Some people are definitely driven by money. I mean, you have to. There are some people that are just driven by money, but other people may be driven by accolades or by recognition, by good treatment. Like some people just love that there's a Christmas party and that you send them, a gift every birthday, and making them feel cared for, I suppose. So there's lots of ways. Is that sort of element in your training as well? Like, do you talk about how to look after team to your studio owners, or is it just the progression in which they learn?
So for our studio owners, we go through like a whole module just on team culture. So how would we work as a team? How do we talk, and respect our boss? The little things like if they message you, how long in between are we replying to them if they need an answer? So we've got those sort of elements, but I've done a lot of things, like a lot of talks and podcasts on how we value our team and how we can show our team that we do value them. And I think
What's the number one tip? If you want to give me, what's a number one tip, Robyn, of how to value your team, do you think? Like, what's something you could share?
My love language is time. So I like to give my team that. So actually sit with them. I give them my time. I want to check in on them. I check in with them and I actually ask, how are you going? How are you coping with the workload that you've got right now? Is there anything I can help with? What can I support with? That sort of thing. But I do also, our team meeting at the start of the year, they all get a gift as well. Like they got, branded bags with their names on it, brand new t-shirts, Prodigy branded mugs. They got an affirmation book, so they're getting, like, I do like to spoil them in that respect. I like to have a nice end of year party. Yes, I do that. But I think the fact that they know that they've got that open communication line with me, where if they need me or they need my support, they're able to come to me for that. And I love that because I feel that we can always grow and learn. Like that's kind of my mantra is, as you learning, you still got to learn to be better, and being a good leader, we're always learning. So I have found that that's been really successful for me because I do have a great relationship with my team, and they can come to me and they respect me enough to go, right, this is what Robyn needs, so I'm going to get that done.
That's very powerful, having that open communication and being approachable and giving them that time is really important, because a lot of people don't give that time, right?
No.
So it's so important. That's a very powerful suggestion. Thank you. So let's talk about before we hit record, you mentioned that people at the moment have a fear around investing in their team. And it could be a climate thing, could be the current economy. What's your take when it comes to team investment?
I think it's the lack of time
Mm.
as well. I think as studio owners, we're doing absolutely everything. So when we're coming to going and implementing a program, or it doesn't matter whether it's the dance apprentice or something else, it's the time that we've got to give, the energy to learn that program, to train the team up in that program. I feel like time is a huge factor, because as studio owner, not every studio can afford to have 5 or 6 admin staff members. Like, I still do my my marketing. I'm doing planning. I'm doing all those things. I'm very lucky that I'm able to have a head of circus that can come in and work 2 days a week and organize my circus program and help. And, obviously I sit with her. We have whips all the time. Where are we at? What are we working on? What can we do to improve? How are we making sure that our kids are loving the classes? So I can sit with her and go through that. I'm blessed that I'm able to have a full-time admin business girl who's also my head of preschool. So that element of my business is looked after, but I'm still super busy because I'm doing all the other things. So I think it's a time thing. Like, I can't imagine studio owners who are a one-man show and can't afford to put on full-timers. It makes it really hard for them to get everything done, plus invest in their team and invest in programs that will help their studio grow.
So why should they then? So why then, if they are time poor, should they be investing their time into, training team, for example?
Because I feel like down the track, and you might not see it there and then, but down the track, those team members are easing your pressure off any other thing that could be going on in your business. And those team members, when you do grow, because investing in your team for me is the greatest retention tool, and they are the backbone of your studio. Your team are keeping those kids in the door every single day. If you don't have a good team, those kids aren't staying. They're going somewhere else. And I'm very big on making sure that all of our kids are not just a number, that they feel valued. But I do team training to make sure that my kids are feeling like that when they come in our doors. So my biggest investment is my team. And I now am able to employ people and go, right, look at those qualities that, Keisha has employed. I would love to have her in my admin team. She would be amazing at building socials and growing my circus school.
How many hours are you teaching at the moment?
Oh, I'm crazy.
Are
I'm
you?
I'm doing 15 hours a week,
Awesome.
but I teach one age group, like from minis all the way up to opens, at once a week at least, so that I can see every age group in my school.
Okay, well, 15 hours isn't too crazy. I thought when you said crazy, I thought, don't tell me you're doing like that.
No, I wouldn't be able to do that. I still feel like, though, like I get to 3 o'clock and I'm like, whoa, I got solos and I'm teaching till 9 o'clock tonight. So it's those little elements where I've got notepads all over my desk and lists, and I'm ticking them off. And I think if I wasn't on classes, I would be able to work through my checklist quickly. But I also love that element of my job, is being in the classroom with my kids, because that gives me fulfillment.
Do you see yourself stepping off teaching a little bit more in the near future, or you don't foresee that right now?
So funny that you say that, because I say to myself every year that I'm taking myself off classes and I'll only do 2 days, and now I'm doing 4. So yes, I do see myself doing that, but while I still love it,
Mm.
I'm gonna still do it.
Yeah, and that's it, right? It's whatever fills your cup. I mean, I had my studio for over 10 years and I stopped teaching in it altogether, actually. And then I just do drop-ins and check-ins and all the things, because we had 4 studio locations. But yeah, I don't know, but I didn't want to run it anymore. I didn't want to run the day-to-day classes. I loved the business end of it. But then I also had my in-house talent agency, so there was other stuff going on. So I was more invested in that side of things. But but that's what lit me up. Like it's got to be
You
it's
have
got to
to
be
love what
you.
you're doing. Absolutely. And I think as a business owner, I've said to myself from young, I don't know where I got this from at young, but I have been saying this to myself. I will never wake up in the morning and have to force myself to go to work. I want to wake up every day and want to go to work.
Mm,
And yes, I work ridiculous hours. I leave my house at like 7:30 in the morning. I don't get home till 9:30 at night, but I never feel like I'm working. I actually genuinely love what I do. I'm so passionate. I put everything into what I do. When that stops is the time that I need to reassess.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, before we wrap, I've just got a couple of questions that I like to ask my guests. What is success to you? What does it mean to you?
I love that. I think success for me is how you feel after you've achieved your goals. So I'm never, I'm not driven by anything other than how I feel once, a concert has gone off without a hitch, or, um, seeing a student move through this huge progress, or, they might be going through a really hard time and they've overcome it at the other end and we've assisted with that. Like for me, that's success. Spending time with my family and being happy, that's success for me.
Mm, I love that. And who or what inspires you most?
My mum definitely inspires me the most. She's like crazy superwoman. She doesn't stop. And she's just always got this positive, go lucky attitude. And it doesn't matter rain, hail, or shine. It's like, we're going to get through it. We've got this, move forward. So yeah, I think the hard times are kind of what builds you. So I've learned that
Mm,
from mum.
yeah, awesome. And what's next? What's next for Robyn?
Wow. Okay. Great question, because I'm knee deep in a new build at the moment for Prodigy. We are expanding, which is really, really exciting. So it's really all happening over here, to be honest.
When you say expanding, do you mean like more locations or larger building site, or what are
Larger
you
building,
doing?
larger building. We're
Wow.
doubling. Yeah. My staff are asking me every day, like, how are you feeling? Because we have 4 weeks to get into one studio, so fit out a size bigger than where we are now and get out of another studio. So
Wow.
I'm in the pressure cooker, which I love being in a pressure cooker, but I'm just not sure I'm just going with the emotions every day at the moment, but I'm loving being in this phase because there's that element of we're against the time and we've got to get our kids in, but we've also got to get out and we've also got to start planning for concert in 5 weeks. But, there's all the things are happening. So I'm here for the ride. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm just going through all the emotions.
That is so exciting. Congratulations.
Thank
That's really
you.
big news. When are you planning to launch the new space?
So we've launched it online with our family but what's the date today? Okay, we are looking at launching and opening in 3 weeks. So we're a week
Yay.
into the build. Oh my goodness, I think there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. I'm nervous, but I think we're going to do it in the short.
Fine. Even if you've got some, wires hanging from the rafters, you'll be right, right?
Absolutely. Look, I just know that
Just make
there's a
sure the insurance is in. That's all.
well, yeah, that was done. That was done on the day I got the keys. But I think, there's always project management for me if this never works out. So there we go. I've learned that I can do another job, which is great.
Did you do a mid-year showcase or something recently?
We did. We did
You
one.
had some sort of trouble with that, some last minute venue or something
Oh
or
yeah,
other?
we had last minute venue changed, and then I basically turned a
They
whole
cancelled on you or something like that?
yeah. So we had that, but I turned a whole basketball court at a school into a theater essentially.
That is so crazy. How much notice did they cancel on you guys?
A week.
That is so not cool.
Yeah. I think that happens a bit though. I was talking to a few people and they're like, oh yes, that happened to us. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one. So yeah, we've had that, but I actually have forgotten that even happened because I'm in the middle of thinking like electrical works, floorboards, how much target do I need? So, but yeah, that did happen. But again,
And how long ago was that? That was only like a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
This is what I mean. So when we started this conversation, I said, you've got a lot of balls in there. Like you've literally just done a showcase, had to find a new venue in 1 week and make it all happen on a basketball court. You're you're expanding your site, you're running the Dance Apprentice, you've got this growing business, like you're teaching 15 hours a week. So, there's a lot going on. How do you balance it all? What's your secret? Or is it not a balance?
I don't know. People are going to like this answer.
Uh-huh.
I don't have balance. I choose to work and that's what fulfills me. So I still get home to my partner every night. We still have dinner. I make sure that my dog's walked every morning. If I have to put the slow cooker on before I leave for work, then I put the slow cooker on. And then I have my weekends with my partner where I can, and I really make sure that we spend good quality time or with my family, during the day. I want to see my niece and nephew. They're not at school yet. So I'll go and visit them or have a quick coffee with them. And I'm very blessed that my mum works for me, so I can hang out with my mum at work. So I don't know. I feel like at this moment, in this phase that I'm in, there is not a balance for me, but I am loving it.
Thank you for being honest about that. Because I think, everyone, work-life balance, except, but honestly, like, I always talk about a work-life blend. I think sometimes, if you have to get out the laptop while you're on holiday just to answer emails for 30 minutes, just to feel like weights off your shoulders and you can enjoy the day, then do that and don't feel guilty about it. Like, just do what you have to do. And I like that you've been honest about that, because people don't understand sometimes, like, oh, they're so successful, they've got this and I haven't, they're expanding their studio, why can't I? Well, it's work, isn't it? It's not a magic bullet. I know that the internet will tell us that it is work 4 hours a week and become a millionaire, but for most people, it's just not how it goes,
Look, the reality is, anyone in our industry is going to know we are fast-paced, high service. People want us, whether it's our team, whether it's our clients, whether it's our students, our family. People are pulling us left, right, and center, and we need to be on, because guess what? If we're not going to provide, they're going somewhere else. And that's reality, isn't it? Like,
I think so. Amen to that, sister.
So I'm very honest with that. And I know it's not the answer most people will give, but this is just, you're right. I go on holidays, and yes, I pull my laptop out. But if I can go 1 hour, I feel better now. I'm not stressing that I haven't replied to my emails.
And then you're present for your family and your partner. Absolutely. This is what I try and tell people. They're like, oh no, I switch everything. But then if you're stressing, that's not good either. So it depends on your personality type. But if you know that getting up 30 minutes before the family wakes up to just check the email and just feel like there's nothing urgent or pressing, and that's going to make you feel calm and present for the day, then do that. Like, just do that.
Absolutely. And what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah. All right. I love it. All right. Well, if people want to find you online, where can they go? And we'll make sure we pop a link in the show notes for you as well.
Absolutely. My personal Instagram is just Robyn_Parras, or find me at the Dance Apprentice.
On Instagram, Facebook, all the bits.
All the bits.
All right. The Dance Apprentice. Check it out, everyone. Thank you so much, Robyn, for being on the show. It's been such a pleasure. I'm so excited we finally got to chat. This is awesome.
Yes, I've loved every minute of it. Thank you so much for having me.
This episode was brought to you by my signature group coaching program, Studio Biz Success, an amazing and accessible online educational platform for performing arts studio owners designed to help you grow your business with confidence and get your results. Check it out at josephinelancuba.com, along with other great industry resources to help you leap into the studio biz you deserve. If you love this episode, be sure to share it with your friends. You can tag me on social media at Josephine Lancuba and give it a review. Your support helps the show to grow so I can continue to provide you with useful, informative content. I'm Josephine Lancuba, your biggest cheerleader. Thanks for listening and shine bright.